Good everyone, and welcome to this video. And today we have something a little bit different. It's not very often I do this anymore, but this is something that I used to do back in the day. For those that are new to the channel, and for those veteran viewers, you'll probably remember me doing something like this. So today we're going to be taking a look at something, as I said, a very bit different to even what I used to do back in the day. So what's inspired me to do this video today, which is covering trainer aircraft that could be added to War Thunder? Well, as we all know, the Strikemaster Mark 88 was added to the War Thunder game itself as part of the Battle Pass. Now, that is an armed trainer. That's pretty much what it was. And that got me thinking. We've now basically opened the floodgates as to what sort of stuff we can have in terms of like trainers and stuff like that, like armed trainers that we could have added to the game. Now, of course, with there being tons out there, it's quite something where you can go, okay, this could be thought about. It doesn't necessarily have to be done. I don't think a lot of these aircraft would really add too much to the game, but it's a potential idea nonetheless. And while we're starting off with the Americans, I've tried to get at least one aircraft for each nation, but I really have struggled. Italy, I had scraped the bottom of the barrel for, let's put it that way. But this is pretty much how I've done it. Now, Sweden doesn't really have anything else from what I've seen. The only thing you could probably put in is like a, I don't know, like a trainer version of the B-17 or something, the little dive bomber. But I really couldn't find anything for Sweden because obviously they've already got the SK-60, they've already got the 105, maybe an earlier variant. I don't know, but I'm not including it today because, well, I couldn't find anything. So we're starting off with the Americans, and well, I've actually got two for the Americans, and that is the T6 Texan, which can also go in Israel, but I've actually got a fun one for Israel. So we'll get back to the Israeli one later, because obviously that's at the end. And I'd be kind of daft to not include this one, especially the next one, which Harry's going to crucify me for if I don't include it. And it's the T6 Texan. This is an aircraft that has, well, I definitely would recognize it in a nutshell. Um, and yeah, it's one of those aircraft that you can just look at and go, yeah, I know that aircraft. Especially if you're into basic military history, because this thing was pretty much everywhere. The Americans used it, us Brits used it, the Canadians used it, even Spain used it. Like there's some really creative like Spanish modified ones with rockets and bombs and stuff like that. Which you could probably put in as a premium, but this T6 Texan would probably fit best in the attacker line, especially with some of the ones that were used in Korea, from what I've seen with rockets. Which, if I go further down into the Wikipedia page, where was it? I've got to remember where it was. There was there was one T6 that had rockets on it. I remember seeing it in here, unless I'm getting old. There it is. So obviously they're not very big rockets, but like I said, it was used in Korea, so this would be pretty funny to have just like small rockets, T6 techs, and a couple of 30 cal machine guns. This would just be daft, but it would be funny to have in the attacker line just as a bit of a meme. And I bet you that center line rack instead of a fuel tank could probably carry a bomb or two. So yeah, something fun. Like I said, this is just something that, well, I've been thinking about this sort of thing for a while, like trainers in War Thunder, and obviously the Strike Master kind of opens the floodgate for that. And obviously people have made suggestions for aircraft like the T6 Texan before, so I'm not going to take claim for it. But anyway, now we move on to one that if I don't include this one, although I'm kind of cheating a bit, Harry will crucify me for. We have the Super Tweet, which is technically not a trainer, but it's modified off of a trainer because it was the T-37 Tweet. But yeah, essentially this is the early version of Twitter because if you say anything on Twitter these days, you're probably going to get some bombs dropped on you in the form of people spamming you, trying to cancel you. But there's your one joke for today. The A37 Dragonfly had really all sorts of kit, so to speak, and I must admit, looking up like what this thing did, and obviously Harry's mentioned it a few times. Um, this thing just reminds me of a jet-powered Skyraider, and I love the Skyraider in War Thunder, and this would be basically a jet-powered version of that. So I'll scroll down to the armament and performance and everything. So the performance is acceptable, like that's not bad. It's when you get down to the armament. Now, obviously, if you're going to put this at around, what, 507, probably about 70, you're obviously not going to put in the AIM-9 or AIM-9 missiles, because that'd just be stupid. But it has a 7.62 minigun with 1,500 rounds. The miniguns in this game do pretty decent amounts of damage, so you don't need more than one. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing could carry gun pods. Obviously, I'm using Wikipedia for this stuff because it's just simple. There probably is, like I say, gun pods, SU-11A, whatever that is. I think it's a 30 cal gun pod. I wouldn't know. It's probably a 20 no my luck. But like I said, you've got provisions for gun pods. You've got all that jazz. This would just be a fun, daft thing that Harry's wanted in the game for years, and if he wants it, it's going to be funny. Um, and yeah, this just seems to me like a pretty acceptable one. You've got 250 Pandas, incendiary bombs, cluster bombs, and all that jazz. Even 750 Panda. What more can you ask for? Do you get hard points for rockets and all that jazz? And like I say, if you don't need the missiles, that's just an extra hard point. So that's how I see it. But this one is definitely one of the more fun options that I've picked. That's for sure. Then we have, I'm going to scroll it back to the top. We have the AR-76. Now, again, I'm kind of cheating for this one. The reason why I say that is because a lot of these early trainers weren't armed, and obviously with Germany, do I cheat with Germany? I'm going to remember. No, I don't cheat. Sort of. What I mean by cheating is, of course, like picking a fighter that had a secondary role as a trainer, or like a trainer that became an attack aircraft, things like that. And luckily, I've not had to do too much of that. But this is a high wing monoplane, which, well, I think they call it's Parasol, isn't it? Parasol fighter, technically speaking. And this this is something we rarely have, because the only thing that in War Thunder off the top of my head that has that is the D371 series. And it's quite an interesting wing shape, and I would love to see more of it, but Gaijin just aren't adding anything. So this was armed with two 792s with 250 rounds each. And if it was used as, well, that's if it was in a fighter configuration, so you could probably do that as like a modification or something. If it was used as a trainer, it only had one, which had 250 rounds, but it could also carry the most Chad bomb in War Thunder, which is, apart from the toilet on the A1H, the 10 kilogram SC10 fragmentation bomb. I love this little bomb. I've tried so hard to kill tanks over the years, and I think I have a grand total of 3 kills to my name with these bombs. And it's fun. Like, these little bombs, they're so crap, but they're so fun. And any excuse to have more of them in War Thunder, in my personal opinion, automatically enters this little fella in that. Now, the only problem with this thing is its performance, which, as you can imagine, it's got an Argus engine. Now, for those that don't know what the Argus is, it is essentially a really, really low powered engine, very fuel efficient. It was used on the FW189, well, a similar Argus engine was. And this only has 240 horsepower and a two-bladed prop. So I think if you're going to put it in the game, definitely either put it in as a trainer modification with the potential to become the fighter mod with an extra gun, or put it as the fighter, but give it an air spawn, because it'll bloody need it. Trust me, it will need it. With a rate of climb of 1,420 feet per minute, not being the most maneuverable, I would imagine, this thing will need all the help it can get if you're going to put it in. Obviously, there might be better trainers out there, but there was a twin engine trainer which was absolutely huge, with similar Argus engines, like 300 horsepower, but it only had two 792s and no bombs. And I was like, well, if it had bombs, I could have put it as like a bomber spawn or something, but unfortunately not. So I picked this as the safe option. Then we have one that I've actually wanted in the game for a while now, and that's the Yak 11. This is, well, at first, I must admit, it just looked like an elongated LA9 with the cockpit and everything. But no, it's not that. The engine is only 700 horsepower, so it's not exactly LA9 territory. But this has top speed of 289 miles an hour. It could even mount a 12.7 UBS machine gun, the Berezin, or the 7.62 Shikass. So pretty simple, pretty effective, and it has two small wing racks for bombs. So nothing really to write home about. But this is just something I've wanted in the game for a while because like it's interesting. You could probably put it like 1-3 and it'd be fine. And like I said with the Arado that I've just mentioned, you could do the same thing. So like a modification to swap out the 7.62, which would be your starting gun, into a 12.7, which everyone and their mother would use the 12.7 past that point. But you get my point. The potential for these vehicles is there, so to speak. So like there is options there, but obviously this has a bit better performance by quite a country mile compared to the Arado. So this doesn't necessarily need that because a single 7.62 cast is like a flamethrower anyway. Cast, use English, but you know what I mean. It's the fact that you could do this with this plane, or you could have two different variants. It depends on what guide you want to do. Maybe the Shikasas, the Tech Tree, the 12.71 as a premium, I don't know. But it's Gaijin these days. Now we have one which I'm sure people are going to shit themselves because they'll read the first paragraph on the Wikipedia page and go, oh no, he wants a turboprop. No, I'm not asking for the turboprop, don't worry. We already have enough problems with turboprops. I'm looking at you, Wyvern. Although I must admit, the Wyvern's new engine sound is actually starting to grow on me, but we'll gloss over that. The one that I'm thinking of adding, though, and personally I would prefer, is the one powered by Merlin. So the one that's down here is actually mentioned as the Merlin. It's the T Mark II. So it has a Rolls-Royce Merlin 35 with 1245 horsepower, four-bladed prop, so it should have a decent climb in theory, but it doesn't. But this can be a nice low BR sort of aircraft. It's only got a top speed of 288 miles an hour, no rear gun, and it only has one 7.7 Brandon machine gun, which I would have said 303, but well, I love saying 7.7 because people, for some reason, think that 303 and 7.7 are different when they're the exact same measurement, pretty much. But we'll go over that. And it also has access to 60-pound rockets, which are the little rockets on British aircraft. They're all right. They'll do the job, and they'll help this thing out with a little bit more punch, so to speak. If the performance, because of the climb, is not satisfactory, give it an attacker spawn and give it the rocket stock. That's the way I could probably see solving that problem. But I digress. It just depends on what Gaijin wants to do with it, really. Then we move on to the British jet, because, again, I've been struggling for some of these nations. The Fallen Gnat. I know a lot of people have been talking about this little fella, and personally I wouldn't mind seeing it. It looks quite interesting, to be honest. This is a subsonic fighter aircraft. I say fighter aircraft. It was more used as a trainer, realistically, but it did see service as a fighter. And if we scroll down to the armament and the actual stats of the thing, it's not too bad. I mean, 695 miles per hour, top speed, a pretty decent turbojet engine, not bad at all. It does have a couple of 30mm Aidens, some rockets, some bombs, pretty substandard stuff. As for BR, I really don't know where you put this thing. This is something where I'd have to see its maneuverability to really put it into perspective. I've not really seen a Fallen Gnat in flight, so I don't know how maneuverable it is. I would imagine, given its small size and decent thrust, I would imagine it'd be quite maneuverable, but obviously that could be down to wing loading and all that jazz. So I don't know. But the fact that it's got Aidens, it's got some rockets, it's got some bombs, even if it's at 695, so you're looking at about, 83, 80, something in that region, I don't know, that's a rough guess. Probably a poor guess, looking at it, but you get my point, because obviously it nears Mark 1. But you get my point. It's the fact that it could be like 80, 87, whatever. I'm sure once we get an actual flight model, we'd be able to figure out where it would be best suited, but, well, considering how long it's been, I don't think we're getting this little fella. Same with the rest of these trainers, I don't think we're ever getting these. But it's a fun little thing to just talk about nonetheless. Next, we have another one for Japan. I nearly picked biplane. I nearly picked a monoplane one, I should say. But right as I was about to hit record, I realised, wait, it doesn't actually have a forward gun. And it has one 250 kilogram bomb. That's going to be the most boring thing to fly. So Yeah, I'd rather not do that, and I'd rather give something with a forward gun. So we have the Yokosuka K5Y, which surprisingly is the last. Well, it's one of the aircraft that actually took part and sunk one of the last US warships. And in fact, it was the last US warship to be lost during the war, which was the USS Callahan, which I suppose that's a historical reason to add this little fella. But in terms of its overall characteristics, it's nothing too special. It's really low on power, and again, this is going to be one where I'm going to have to cheat and say give it a bomber spawn. Now, obviously, this is the float plane that it's specifying here, so that already puts it in the metric of getting an air spawn. But the standard one can still get an air spawn anyway, because it's not got a lot of power. I mean, 340 horsepower, top speed of 120 miles per hour. I've been in cars that are faster than that. And heck, I've driven a Ferrari which can do nearly 200 miles an hour. I've not done 200 miles an hour, but you get my point. The fact that you could give this thing a sort of boost just to help it out would be just nice and all. And it's really the best trainer that I could think of off the top of my head. So now we have the forward fire in 7.7, which again I mentioned, and personally this is why I picked it, because it actually has a gun. Does have a rearward gun as well, and a couple of bombs, which in my eyes, if you really want to go that far, give it a bomber spawn just to help the poor thing out, but we'll gloss over that. The only problem with that is you can't give it too high because it has a service ceiling of 14,000 feet. So, yeah. Or if you want 90 meters, there it is, 4,330 meters. But personally, I don't think it's going to go. I don't think they're ever going to have this poor little fella. And like I said, most of these aircraft will probably never see the light of day in War Thunder. But it's interesting to talk about nonetheless. Then we have another one where I'm sort of cheating, but also not, kind of. We have the MS 760, which was built by Moraine Saulnier, which I must admit, I actually like the MS aircraft, both in War Thunder and in real life. They look really nice. Like, the MS 406s and stuff, they look ugly, but as soon as they become a Morco Moraine, I'm not complaining. But this was a light trainer jet. It has actually quite low performance, like 400 miles per hour. So it's similar to the Strike Master. However, there is a catch with that. I've not been able to find any information on what guns it had. Obviously, it says machine guns, so it won't be cannons. However, it's where we get into the ordnance where it will become limited. Four 90mm rockets, which, again, not find any information about this, and two 50-kilogram bombs. Again, not found any real information on what kinds of bombs. This one is really one where I've really struggled to find anything on it. But the performance alone would probably met it in the same vicinity as the Strike Master. Now, looking at its overall shape, do I think it's going to be more maneuverable than a Strike Master? Probably not, but it depends. Because this has, well, it has two engines as opposed to the one, but I don't remember the Strike Master's thrust off the top of my head. I think it's 1300 something, so it does have better thrust, but it'd be down to how its overall wing loading and all that jazz is, and how that would all implement it. I don't know if it would be more maneuverable than the Strike Master, which would definitely give people a reason to fly this thing, because I know some people don't like the Strike Master with how maneuverable it is, but we'll gloss over that. But yeah, I literally cannot find any information on this thing. It's like the Wikipedia page is all I've really found. If anyone has any sources for not just this plane, but any of the other planes to like specify a little bit more, do leave them in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to take a look at them. Moving on to Italy, which again I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel here. We have the Fiat G80, which again I was really struggling for this one. Again, I've not found too much information on this. It's another one of those where I'm really struggling, because there's just not a lot of information for some of these vehicles, because obviously they're not. Well, I say G80, I mean the G82, because that's what this one's specifying. But it's one of those where like you just struggle because you just can't really find the information. Now, obviously, two forward firing 12.7s, they're fine. We'll limit the firepower a little bit, but that's to be expected. 8 HVAR rockets, two 230 kilogram bombs, pretty acceptable, or for CAS anyway. The HVARs will definitely show their age depending on where you put this thing in terms of BR. And obviously the speed alone, with the lack of firepower, because like 250s just aren't going to cut it most of the time. 650s would, but well, we have two, so we can't really talk about that too much. But with it looking to be pretty alright in terms of its overall characteristics and everything, this should be something where we have the ability to balance it more so based on its overall performance, but also not go too hard on it because obviously it only has 250 cals. So, in terms of a BR for this thing, I don't really know where you'd put it. I would probably say put it around the region of an MS. Well, no, the MD 450 Barogan, which is 7.7, I think. I don't remember its top speed, but it's around that region roughly. Not around that region, but like it's near that sort of region. Um, this is faster than the MD 450, but you get my point. It's the fact that we'd have to balance it based off its armament, not its speed, which could be an issue. But considering it only has 8 HVARs and two small bombs, I don't think this thing's going to be winning matches on its own. And finally, I'm not going to take credit for this one before I jump into this. This is from a War Thunder tree proposal for, I think it was created by Yo-Yo Last, or not Yo-Yo Last. I don't remember who made it. Yeah, Yo-Yo Last. So this is the interactive tree. He made this, so I'm not going to take credit for this. This is pretty much their proposal for like an early rank Israeli sort of tech tree. However, I'm going to utilize that because they actually have an interactive little menu, which well, I'll say is fair credit, guys, because great little thing. And we're going to go for a meme finish. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we could use the T6 Texan for Israel because they did use them. But no, I'm going one step further. I'm nicking the Bonanza Model 35, which reminds me of a Cessna. And this is essentially what happens when you are desperate for aircraft, and you just want to bomb stuff with a small Cessna, pretty much. It's not a Cessna, I don't believe. I've never really looked into this little thing. But yeah. Essentially, the bomb racks under there, they're actually British bomb racks from what I've read. But yeah, they can carry two 50 kilogram German bombs, well, the SC and the SD 50. Any Germans out there, what are the differences between those two? I don't actually know. The SC 50 and SD 50. Let me know. And then, of course, we have the SD 70 bombs, which I think there's a slight difference in what than with them. But here's the kicker. There's actually a baggage bay on this thing. I don't know where it is. I think it's here or it's somewhere further back of the plane. Someone actually got in there with a 7.62 machine gun and just laid down in there in case they needed to drive by freaking Douglas Dakotas, which I'm sorry, but that is a Chad move and that is funny as hell. And the fact that you could, like, in theory, if this thing has baggaging compartments on both sides, you could maybe have two guns on one, like, you could have it on different sides and the gunner can just shoot from those sides. That would make this thing very meme worthy. You'd have to give this thing probably an attacker spawn because it would need the extra performance because obviously it doesn't really have. Because I've looked into the performance of this thing. It's a civilian plane. It's not going to be the most powerful. But if you really needed to, give it a bomber spawn just because then it could at least drive by stuff and just have fun, really. But yeah, this is one where I pretty much picked it because of the meme potential, and I know people love something like a Poe 2, and I could just imagine people dropping bombs on this with this thing in War Thunder on like King Tigers and stuff with a little Cessna whilst giving them a little taste of the 7.62 or something. That's what I would do anyway, but I digress. So I hope you enjoyed this little video today. Obviously, well, I say little, we've blubbered on a bit too much, but you get my point. That's normal for me. As I say, this is something that I don't think will ever happen in War Thunder. Like, I don't think we'll get any, if at all, of these aircraft in War Thunder. But in my personal opinion, if I really wanted to pick two, I would probably pick the T6 Texan and this, purely for the meme potential. But we'll gloss over that. Anyway, I'm going to leave it all to it for today. Really hope you enjoyed seeing this video on trainer aircraft in War Thunder, and I will see you all on the next one.